The digital camera. The digital camera is considered one of the major developments in technology because it works very differently from its predecessor, the film camera. The ordinary cameras functioned entirely on chemical and mechanical processes. This means no electricity is needed to operate them. But digital cameras, on the other hand, have built-in computers and function electronically. Images are captured and recorded using digital technology. Unlike with film, photographs aren't stored as patterns of darkness and light, but instead as long strings of numbers. This is what allows us to use, store, share, and manipulate photos instantly. Digital cameras function simply this way. When you press the button to take the photograph, an aperture opens and the light streams into the lens. This is the same process as with a film camera. But that's as far as the similarities go. Instead of film, digital cameras use a piece of electronic equipment to capture the incoming light rays and turn these into electronic signals. This light detector is called a charge-coupled device, or CCD. It's stored via a green rectangular chip with gold wires. Now let's try to understand how a digital camera works by understanding pixel images. Take a look at the television screen closely. Notice how the pictures are made up of very tiny colored dots or squares called pixels. Images on laptop LCD computer screens also use pixels. In these TV or computer screens, electronic equipment can switch these colored pixels on and off instantly. Light from the screen travels to your eyes and your brain is fooled to seeing large moving pictures. Now the exact opposite happens in a digital camera. The light that comes from the object you're taking a photo of zooms into the camera lens. This incoming image hits the CCD, or the light detector. It breaks up the image into millions and millions of pixels. Then the CCD measures the color and brightness of each pixel and stores it as a number. As a result, your digital image becomes a long series of numbers, each containing the exact details of what every pixel contains. And this is how the image is converted and stored digitally.
Hello everyone, welcome to the broadcast this afternoon. It's wonderful to be here with you. My name is Janet Unterschlag and it's great to be back. I want to start by thanking Liberty for the opportunity of being here and the chance to help you with your studies. It really is something that is special that they offer to me and to you. Remember, you can access us on the Tenfold application education app, but we've also now got a WhatsApp, and you can send a hi to us, and you will find with Dex that you can access past papers, study material, and you can ask questions. And remember that I really would like you to send a hi and ask some questions. It's very important to me not only to do what I think would be useful, but to do what you are telling me would be the best for you. So I'm really looking for questions. Remember, try to be specific. Don't say something like, please tell me what Hamlet's about, or I don't know anything about my children, my Africa. Can you retell the story? Because that just takes too much time. But if you could be specific and send a particular question, and that's literature or language or writing. So I will tackle anything from the diary entry to the narrative essay. So please send in your questions. And then remember also that we have YouTube, and you can find us at Mindset Learn. And once again, you can access, study help, and get help. So please ask questions. I wondered what everybody would like this afternoon, and I was looking at the fact that the language section of the paper offers you a chance to get marks. I'm not saying they're easy marks, but if you know what you're doing and you've done quite a bit of practice, you can get those marks and you can make sure that your results on the language paper are that little bit better. So I'm really going to look at parts of speech for the next few weeks. So that's my big heading, is parts of speech. And I'm going to be looking at individual things under that heading and look at how the questions are asked in the exam. I'm particularly focusing on the FAL paper, but please, if you've got questions on the way other things are set, tell me. So I'm doing language, but again, that doesn't mean to say that you can't send questions on something else. So if you have a look at this, there's my language structures and conventions and parts of speech. And you can see an ant happily sitting there on your screen. And I want you to imagine, because I'm going to get to this, or how do I draw this, that there is another ant on top of him, and another ant on top of that, and maybe that underneath him here, which is a bit pale, can I get a slightly darker color? Down here is another ant. So I'm getting one ant like on the other there. So this comes from an article from the Conversation Africa, and it was published in July of this year. How do Olympic athletes stack up against invertebrates? not very well, which is why I wanted that stack of ants up there. Right, so invertebrates, just for the sake of vocab, though it's not sort of part of my lesson, you know what your vertebrae are, up and down your back, your vertebra. So invertebrate, in meaning not, you don't have vertebra, you don't have that spinal column. Okay, so we're looking at ants, so you can guess. Remember, always take a really good guess. You've never heard of invertebrate, you don't do life science. Well, take a guess. There are the ants stacked up. But my focus is on Olympic. And I'm starting with a very obvious question. I'm looking at that capital letter. So what do you know about why you might write a word with a capital letter? So possibly you might say, well, I remember from my studying that Olympic might have something to do with a proper noun, because proper nouns have capital letters. But you stop and you think, but hang on a second, is Olympic a noun? Have a look at that. We have athletes stacking up. So what is a noun? A noun names something. So athlete is naming. What are we stacking up? Are we stacking up my hands? No. Are we stacking up pens? No. We're stacking up athletes. So we are naming something here. So here is your noun. So what then is Olympic? What describes a noun? Right, it's an adjective. But do we write adjectives automatically with capital letters? And you think, well, no, we don't. So if I said, this is a red cloth, piece of cloth, a red dress. This is a yellow, well, I'm calling it a yellow pen, but you know what I mean. It's got yellow ink. No, I don't write those with capital letters. These are adjectives describing the nouns. So why does Olympic have a capital letter? So if we have a look at this picture, that might help you make the right guess if you don't know. So I got this picture of a site that advertises Greece for tourists. It's called Greece High Definition. And it tells me, if I look at the caption, that what I'm looking at is something called Mount Olympus. So what is Mount? Again, part of your syllabus. You do abbreviations. It's a shortened form of what? Of mountain. So this is Mount Olympus. It's the name of the mountain. So what is the answer to my question? We know what a proper noun is. We were talking about that. What's the proper noun here? Mount Olympus. It's the name of the mountain. It's a proper noun because it's its own special name. So what then is a proper adjective? It's going to be an adjective which comes from, made from, a proper noun. So we've got Olympus, and we make it into Olympic. Right, 5 more examples. Can you think of any off the top of your head? 1. Have you got some? So think of a proper noun and turn it into an adjective. Let's have a look at what I suggested. Right, fairly obviously I chose South Africa. And I suppose I had to choose Shakespeare. So notice what we've got here. We've got that ending, that suffix. But then I chose a few others that have different suffixes, because I thought it would be a good idea to look at the suffixes so that if you are asked to make a proper adjective from a proper noun and you weren't sure, you could maybe take a good guess. So obviously you'd know something like America, American. But if I gave you, I don't know, can't think of an odd example. If I gave you Uganda, you'd say Ugandan. But if I gave you something you thought, oh, I don't think it's with an AN ending, then you can see some of the other endings that we have for proper adjectives. What do I want you to revise? Nouns. Common nouns, ordinary nouns, proper nouns, and then making adjectives from proper nouns and getting proper adjectives. We're back to our article from the Conversation Africa. Oh, hang on, let me just, hope you didn't see that answer. Right, if we take athlete, let me get a lighter color. You can be asked in an exam to give a singular or a plural. So you've got a plural here and a plural here. What is the singular of athletes? Right, and our computer corrected it and we have athletes. So the singular of athletes is athlete. You can be asked that in an exam. Now I'd like the adjective. So say to yourself, if you don't know how to, well, if you don't know what the adjective is automatically, how do you make an adjective? An adjective often comes right in front of the noun. So if I said, this has been a busy day, there is my noun. I put this in front of the noun. So let's say I give you another noun. I give you happiness. And I say, please give me the adjective from happiness. Say to yourself, put it in front of a noun. So you could have a day that has happiness in it. You could have a child who is feeling happiness. Put a noun that you feel could have this word in front of it. And you should be able to see, we don't say this is a happiness day or a happiness child, but you should be able to get to happy. So what about athlete? You don't say, I have a very athlete child. What do we say? Athletic. It's the IC ending. So the adjective from athlete, athletic. This is another way that you can be asked the adjective in an exam. So they say, Here is the word athlete. Insert that in the correct form into the sentence below. And then you would say athletic. So different ways of asking it. Now we're looking at stack up. So we're back to our ants. So we had ants, and then we had another ant on top, and another ant, those are his feet down there, and another ant below. And we said the ants were stacked up. What does it mean? It obviously means one placed on top of the other. What part of speech is this? How do Olympic athletes stack up? How do they stack up? How do I eat a mango? How does the child swim so fast? How does the truck travel so many kilometers? What have we got? Let's choose a color. We've got do eat, do swim, do travel. What part of speech are we dealing with? It is the finite verb. What do we mean by a finite verb? It's the complete verb. It's the whole verb. It gives me the tense. It has a subject. Do you remember our little rap? What is a finite verb? What is a finite verb? I won't leave you in suspense. Subject, number, person, tense. So a finite verb has a subject, it has number, it has person, it has tense. So it's the finite verb. So we've got what it means and we've got what part of speech it is. Examiners also like giving you this kind of question. Now, what am I warning you about here? Is stack up formal or informal? When you are saying, how do you stack up against somebody else? It is informal. What does it mean if I say to you, how do you stack up against your brother in playing rugby? What does it mean? Because if you look at my stacks, this is stacking up. I'm stacking up my ants. But what does it mean if I say, how do you stack up? How do you stack up against the best mathematician in the country? What does it mean? It means, how do you compare? How good are you in comparison with those other athletes, those other mathematicians, those other rugby players? And that's informal. If I'm stacking something, I can say it formally, but then I must be stacking. So I must be stacking like putting one thing on top of each other with my ants. So let's come back to our question. You stack as a different part of speech. So be careful. You cannot use it again as a verb. So you must use it as something else. So I got this picture of a website that gives us information about Mpumalanga. So this is a forest. Look at the back. You've got all the trees back here in the forest, and they've been cutting down the trees, and they've got here the trunks of the trees, the branches of the trees over here, and they are putting them in a stack, correct. So you would say something like, there is a stack of wood, or we often use the word timber for lots of wood together. There's a stack of timber, and that would be using it in a sentence, where were we, of your own. Is this where we were? Let me just go back. Yes. So a different part of speech. Now, what did I suggest? Let me just go back to my yellow, which shows up so nicely. I suggested saying a stack. Why? Because I didn't want a verb. I wanted a noun. And you know that if you put a or the in front of it, you can get a noun. So a stack of wood. And formal. I was thinking that some students might write something like, oh, I have a stack of homework to do. That's informal. Literally, your books are piled one on top of the other, but a stack of homework means a lot of homework. So that's informal. So just be careful when you are asked in a test or an exam to write a sentence of your own. I would always try to write a formal sentence rather than an informal sentence. And very often examiners ask for informal language to be made more formal, but they don't often ask you to take a formal word and give an informal. I mean, they could. They could say to you, there is the word mother, give the informal. Here is the word father, give the informal. So the informal of mother would be mom or mommy or mum or mummy, and dad or daddy. But seriously, they don't generally do it that way. They do it this way. Here's mom, make it formal. Here's dad, make it formal. And don't, if you're writing about Hamlet, don't please say, Hamlet's dad has been murdered. Please don't. Please say Hamlet's father. Remember, you're trying to use that more formal English, especially in literature. Right, let's see where I was planning to go next. Right, so this is slightly different. So maybe let's take an ad break, because we are going to be looking at adjectives and nouns, but another aspect of punctuation. So let's take an ad break before we start that.
Did you know that Dachshunds, or sausage dogs, were originally bred to hunt badgers and other burrow-dwelling animals? The name Dachshund is of German origin and literally translates to badger dog. This is because the long, narrow build of the breed was specifically developed to allow the dog to hunt animals that live in burrows, such as badgers.
No one ever asks why we do the weird things we do. Like, why once is never enough. Or doing 2 trips is just one too many. Why do we, before we use these, or say 5, when we mean 20? Why do we have second thoughts? And think that lift buttons make them go faster? Why don't we walk there, cross our fingers, touch wood, and struggle to hide our true feelings? At Liberty, we want to know all the weird and wonderful things that make us human, because human beings, being human, are what we make financial solutions for. Liberty, in it with you.
Welcome everybody, welcome back. It's English this afternoon and we are discussing parts of speech. I want to thank Liberty for the chance of being able to start this revision session on parts of speech. Remember, you can find us on the Tenfold Education app, and you can ask questions there and get help. You can also send a hi on WhatsApp, and you can get Dex, and Dex will give you help, access to study materials, past papers, and you can find us on YouTube at Mindset Learn. Please, guys, connect with us. We're on these platforms. We're out there. We're wanting to help you. Please connect, ask, download our stuff, get involved. Right, we're looking at parts of speech, and we did look at how punctuation and parts of speech go together when we looked at Olympic coming from Olympus, therefore it would have a capital O. Please have a look at this sentence. Right, well, what can we guess about this beetle from this sentence? I hope you know what a beetle looks like, sort of flat and little legs, right? Whirligig, to whirl, is to go very, very fast, all right? That is whirling. So if I'm whirling, I'm doing that. So a whirligig beetle hopefully goes very fast. He has an egg-shaped body. Well, that's easy. You just draw an egg. And we're told that it cuts down on drag for speedy swimming. So this is a beetle that's going to be swimming, and he's got an egg-shaped body. Lovely. Look at the question. Right. It is important that you get the name right. You need to learn it. This is the hyphen. And why is it there? Right. What part of speech is body? The body, the beetle, the boy, the girl, the pen, the mouth, the head, the eye. It is a noun. Why? Do you remember what we said earlier in the program? Nouns name things. Am I holding an apple? No, you're holding a pen. Ah, is the pen in my foot? No, in your hand. So I am naming something. If I say, oh, please give me that. What? The book. I have to name it. So a noun names something. So what is egg-shaped doing? It's telling me about the body. What tells me about a noun? What did we say earlier? An adjective. So it's an adjective. Why has it got a hyphen? Because there are two words. There's egg and there is shape. And we have joined those two words together to create one word. So what do hyphens do? They join words to do what? To make a compound word. That's what they do. This is a compound adjective. Home language students, be careful. If you're asked, why is the hyphen there? And you say, because it's creating a compound adjective, and actually it's a compound noun, you're going to be wrong. Compound is right, but noun is wrong. So I think if you're unsure, so you look at this, and it says, what's the punctuation mark? We've got it. Why is it there? Say to create a compound word, because maybe you're not sure, is it a compound noun? Is it a compound adjective? Is it a compound preposition? What is it? Maybe just be safe and hope that the marker, where's my red pen, that the marker will say, lovely. You know that it's a compound. But if you say it's a compound noun and it's not, then the marker is going to be sitting looking at the word noun and going, this is not quite right. Typical exam question. we are making one part of speech from another. We are giving derivatives. So I give you Speedy and I ask for the noun. And the noun is speed. Nice, well done. What's the verb? So you could say he was doing, or he was driving at high speed. He went at great speed. That's the noun. What's the verb? So once again, put it in a sentence. You know that you can say, oh no, I don't want black. That you can say something like, there would be the verb and then the rest of the sentence. He, there would be the verb and the rest of the sentence. The driver, and then there would be the verb and the rest of the sentence. If you are trying to find your finite verb, go back to what is a finite verb? What is a finite verb? I won't leave you in suspense. Subject, number, person, tense. Tense. Then maybe try to put it in a tense that you can recognize, like the past tense or the present tense. So what would we say about somebody? Let's say this is your father. He always, when he goes to work. He's in his car and he always speeds. So what is the verb from speed? It's speed. I speed along, meaning I go very quickly. So how do you change it from one part of speech to another? You think, where do we use that in a sentence? Where does it usually go? How is it usually used? And then you try to use the word you are given in that place in a sentence. Right, that is our picture of the stack. So remember, if you're given a stack and you're told to make a verb, you say, he stacks his books. I stack the plates in the cupboard. Put it where the verb goes. We're looking here, we're still looking at nouns. So we've looked at the proper noun and we've looked at the common noun. Have a look at this question. We are working now on the abstract noun. One way that you can try to help yourself is by knowing some suffixes that can make abstract nouns. So in the same way that we talked about suffixes on the proper adjective, there are suffixes that make common abstract nouns. If we look at compete, we try to think of some of our suffixes and we put the in front of it. My student entered the, we don't say the compete. He was entered in the, we don't say in the compete, in the competition. So one of the suffixes that shows you an abstract noun is shin. Earlier, I talked about happiness. That's another very common abstract noun suffix. If I say contentment, appeasement. Mint is another common abstract noun suffix. If I say ism, we had marks earlier in the lesson. Marks, the proper noun, Marxist, the proper adjective, Marxism. So knowing some of the abstract noun suffixes can help you. But say to yourself, do I say weightliftism, weightliftshin, weightlifness, weightlifmint? Nah, none of them sounded all right. So what is the abstract noun from weightlifters? Remember, this is a person noun. That ER ending or an OR ending often tells you a person. Weightlifter, teacher, painter, doctor. So what do you say? I have taken up weightlifting. We're going to make it using the ing. Remember, if we take a verb, we can make it into a noun. And one of the ways that we can do that is by adding ing to the end. So you would say something like eat as my verb, eating as my noun. Because I'm now saying, I'm naming something. Eating is wonderful when you are hungry. You should not be eating that ice cream in class. I am naming what you should not be doing. That is a noun. And I know that some of you know the proper name for this, because when I ask, I always get it from somebody in my classes. This is a gerund. A gerund, a noun made from a verb, and that noun ends in ing. Have a look at this sentence. Right, we're still talking about our ants. We're still in the same article from the Conversation Africa. We're told the strength of ants is largely, this means mainly, mostly, on the whole, due to the physics of scale. So I will leave your physics teacher to explain to you about the physics of scale. But scale is talking about how big or small. So the strength of ants is largely due to something to do with their size and what they're up to. But what about this question? What if you've never seen that word before in your life? And you think, I don't even know how to say that. I don't know what that word means. But look what you've got, the something strength. We've got it before the noun, and it is telling me about the noun. So the part of speech would be an adjective. Lovely. Formidable is when something inspires you with respect and amazement. If you say the formidable achievement of this student, you mean it is so great, it is so enormous that it leaves me going, wow. So formidable, big, huge, great, leaving the person watching or speaking about it amazed and impressed. We've got another word in here that I want to look at in a moment, but another word ending in able that is the same part of speech. So you're going to do this, please. I want another adjective ending in able. If you want to connect with me, you've got all of those various platforms. Send me an answer. Let me see that you are engaging. What do I want? An adjective ending in able. Remember, I'm also looking at suffixes. So this is a suffix. But I want to go on to this little word. Now, for me, critter is informal. There it is. Though I do see it in scientific articles, not the very, very formal scientific articles written, for experts in the field, but in scientific articles written for the ordinary person. In English, we say the lay person, meaning I'm not an expert in that field. So if I said, this is an article written about the universe for the lay person, I mean not for an astrophysicist who really knows what's going on. And in articles written by Americans and published in America, I do see the word critter. But for me, a critter is an informal word. So I'm asking you, what would I say rather than critter? We're talking about ants and other critters. I would say creatures. So do you have to know words like this? I think this is possibly an unusual one. But yes, you are expected to have a working knowledge of words used by other English speakers in other parts of the world. It's not often tested, but you should be able to say, all right, an American would say this, but a South African would say that. And I think the most famous one is robot. Because we are known, it's ours, that everybody else in the world talks about traffic lights. And South Africans talk about robots. In other parts of the world, robots are those mechanical things that do things. That's a robot. For us, it's also a traffic light. So you are meant to have some knowledge of that. Comes from your reading, comes from your exposure to language. This is a way that the FAL students are often asked a question on derivatives. So we said that derivatives are when you take one part of speech and you turn it into another. So you're taking the root. So we had speed, and we said speedy for the adjective. Or we had athlete, and we said athletic for the adjective. So in home language, they often just say to you, give the adjectival form, or give the adjective from, or give the verb from, or give the verb form of. But in FAL, they often ask it like this. So they put the word in brackets, and then they ask you this question here. And you would say here, the answer is running. Then a more typical home language question, give the noun form of, or give the verb form of. It's not that FAL students can't be asked it in this way. So you just need to have a look at past papers and see how it's asked in the questions that you are preparing yourself to answer. So the noun form of original, put it in a sentence. That artist has and I want to name what he has. He has originality, right? Then you could say, he, this art form. Now I want the verb. So I want something saying he made this art form. He created this art form, but it's got to be the word original. And actually saying things like he made or he created, I have seen students do that. They put their own word in. So if I wrote, he created this art form, I don't want to write it too big because it's a perfectly okay sentence. Oh, you can't see it. Hang on. It's an okay sentence, but it's not the verb form from that word, and that's what they're asking you for. But I do see students putting in a verb that makes sense, but isn't this root. So, you originate. Oh, and he originated. That would have to be in the past tense. So we've got originality, we've got originate, and then do memos offer other alternatives? Yes, because you could say something like my are, meaning where you originally came from. So you wouldn't say my originality are, you'd say my origins. So origin, let me just bracket that part of it, that's another noun form. I'm naming something. Here I'm naming what he has, originality. Here I'm naming my origins, where I come from. But they're all related to this. So be very careful. You know, students come out of exams and they immediately ask each other, what did you write? What did you write? And that kind of checking yourself can be comforting, but it also can be very undermining. You can listen to what other people are saying and thinking, oh, what have I done? I've made a complete mess. And maybe you haven't. Maybe all your friends wrote originality and you wrote origin. It's equally correct. So remember, there are alternatives in exams. We've got the word cover. Go back to the sentence. Look at the word cover. Look at the question. This question here. Right, so what does it mean if an athlete covers a particular distance? It means that is the length that he runs. So you could say, in this race, you have to cover, meaning you've got to run a particular distance. So what part of speech is cover? If I'm talking about an athlete, there he is, and I say he covers that distance. Go back to our original sentence. Today's runners cover distances. What part of speech? This is, once again, your verb. It is your finite verb. So let's write another sentence. Let's put in cover in a different sentence. If I said something like, the cover of the book is torn. What does cover mean in that sentence? It means something that protects. It's the protection of the book. So you can be asked, as I was saying earlier in the program, you can be asked, use the word cover with a different meaning. So we had athletes, there they were, covering a distance, meaning they've got to run a particular distance. Then you can use the word cover with a different meaning. So now you want it as something that protects. Cover the food, there are flies around. Have a look at these two sentences. Right, what are we doing here? We're still working with nouns, but we're also working with punctuation. And we're working with a word in brackets, and you have to put it in the right form. So, have a look at the first sentence. Right. We start with the men's record. What punctuation mark should be in that sentence? Or in that word? We need an apostrophe. The big question is, where is the apostrophe going to go? Before the S, after the S? It's going to go there. Now the question is why? The apostrophe means of. So it's the record of the men. The record of the men. You can't hear that S. So it's the record of the men, the men's record, and it goes there. Can you see a second mistake? It's another punctuation error. Yes? It's there. Why does that need a capital letter? So now we're back at what we did at the beginning of the lesson. We started with proper nouns and proper adjectives. So if you're asked for a reason, you say this is a proper noun, and a proper noun is punctuated with a capital letter. Can you find another mistake? It's not a punctuation error. It's the S there. Earlier in the broadcast, we talked about singular and plural. We had invertebrate, invertebrates, athlete, athletes. The most common way of forming a plural in English is to add an S. And I beg you not to put an apostrophe on a plural. If you look at this, it's a plural. It doesn't have an apostrophe because it's a plural. Right. Correct the 3 mistakes in the sentence. We've done that. Give the proper adjective from Jamaica. There's Jamaica. Give the proper adjective from Jamaica. It's one of the easy ones. It's Jamaican, like South African. What does per mean? Okay. A top speed of so many kilometers per hour. His top speed is so many body lengths per second. Right? So what does per mean? It means for each hour, for each second. And then we've got to fix this. So we've got to give the correct form of the word in brackets. And that would be is. Please don't forget the verb to be. The verb to be has forms in the present tense, is, am, are, in the past tense, was, were, in the future, will be, shall be, and so on. So this is a typical kind of exam question where you are asked a number of different things. You've got some punctuation, you've got a singular and plural, you've got a verb, and you've got what is the meaning of a particular word. So both in home language and in FAL, you are given a little passage, and then you are asked language questions based on that passage. So what we focused on today mainly in our parts of speech have been nouns and adjectives and forming the correct forms and singulars and plurals and the punctuation that goes around nouns and sentences with the nouns in it. But obviously when you're being tested on language, you're not necessarily going to get 4 questions on a noun. You're going to get 1 question on the noun, 1 on the apostrophe, 1 on the verb, so that the examiners can test as much as possible in a shorter space as possible. So you need to go through past papers and see what are the examiners testing. What have they been testing, I would suggest, in the last 5 years. So have a look at matric papers for the last 5 years, look at the language sections particularly, and practice that. And I will be back with you as soon as possible. And please send in questions, and we are here to help you. Please join us again. From me for today. Bye-bye.
What's up, peeps? Welcome to Moby School. We are here to make sure that you, yes, you get all the marks that you deserve on the go. We're here every Mondays to Fridays from 2 to 3 p.m. only on Mindset Learn TV. Now, this is a whole hour worth of revision just for you. And I hope that you've got your notepads and your pens ready and that you and your study group are game for today's revision session. Now, my name is Jo, and just like you, I am also in matric, and I'm here for a whole hour to make sure that I ace my final exams. and I hope that you will be doing the exact same thing. Now, do remember that we love hearing from you guys, so log on to our Facebook page, which is www.facebook.com/MobySchoolSA. Drop us your comments, like our page, share the page, and even spread the Moby School family even bigger. Now, isn't that cool? Yep, yes it is. Now, do remember that you can catch us here for a whole hour of revision session where all of our awesome teachers come right here to help you guys revise. So on that note of the first revision session, let's head straight to our teacher.
Hello everyone. Welcome to English First Additional Language. And the topic for today is poetry. We want to look at what exactly is poetry. And when we discuss this, we look at different aspects of the text. So let's start with rhythm. What is rhythm? In poetry, it's referring to the natural flow of sound in the line. If we look at a definition, the harmony produced by the regular repetition of a beat or accent. Now, the accent is where the stress lies. So if I say today, the stress is there. Now, if you have a regular beat going on, da 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 da, or da 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 da, then that beat is the rhythm of the line. Meter is a particular pattern. So I've just said we could have da 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 da. So when there's an actual rhythmic